there are likely to be challenges. So, one of the primary issues that I have been discussing with people we advise, as well as public policy experts, is the fact that we already have an existing cyber breach reporting mechanism under the IT Act, under the certain rules, and pretty much all entities are required to comply with that. Now, the DPDP rules, as expected, they have added more flesh to the data breach reporting mechanism that was introduced under the Act. I think the concern here is that the timelines and the risk of, as in the trigger of reporting. For example, they simply refer to any kind of data privacy breach. They don't have a risk-based threshold. In generally under incident reporting framework for cyber and breaches and data breaches, typically internationally there are established practices of there being a risk-based threshold. What that does is that not every incident needs to be reported, because sometimes there could be various technical issues, internal issues, basis which, for example, data may not be accessible or it could appear to be lost. There are many things that happen in very complex data processing infrastructures wherein it takes a bit of time sometimes to figure out whether there is even a threat in the first place. So unless you give entities that kind of time, and unless you tell them that this is the benchmark beyond which you have to report, I think ultimately, if this provision is introduced in this manner, what will happen is that entities will simply mindlessly start reporting incidents to MeitY, because naturally they want to be compliant with the law. And my understanding of the objective of these kind of provisions under these data laws in India, the government essentially wants to know how secure is ICT infrastructure in India, that what kind of breaches are happening, what are companies doing to respond to it, and what is the nature of data that is susceptible to breaches. There are many data insights that the government can gain by having this kind of cyber breaching framework. So the question really is that having this kind of mindless reporting mechanism, is it really serving that purpose? Because entities will comply, but you may not even get to know the real picture, because one of the timelines for reporting under this is that as soon as you get to know. Now, as soon as you have knowledge. Now, obviously, one can have knowledge simply by, like a cybersecurity person, employee in your company saying that there has been a breach. But you don't really know enough more than that. But these rules require that as soon as you have knowledge, you should tell the data principal, the data subject, and you should tell the data protection board. At that point, you are not in any position to give anything efficient and anything important of report. However, you have to do that. And then there's a separate 72-hour timeline where you have to give a more detailed report. So our suggestion, and which I think the industry, many stakeholders in the industry also support, is that MeitY could consider a risk-based threshold. Not every kind of incident needs to be reported. There are things that are important, there are things that are concerning, and there are things that will aid, better cybersecurity standards in India. So perhaps have a mechanism and a threshold for that. And the second thing is that maybe lengthen the timelines a little bit. Give entities a bit of leeway to figure out. Especially, another practical issue is that let's say you're a data fiduciary and you're working with a data processor. Maybe the breach has happened at their end. Now you are waiting for this data processor to get back to you, but the data breach reporting obligation is on the data fiduciary. So even in that to and fro, one could lose a lot of time and be unable to provide let's say, a more accurate picture to the government. So these kind of factors, if they are considered, I think it will serve the original objective, that essentially very relevant and accurate information regarding data breaches should be available in the industry as well as to the government. Otherwise, also as a user, if you can imagine, if any kind of breach without it being investigated, you keep getting emails from a Zomato and a Google and a YouTube that your data has been leaked, your data has been leaked, you will completely lose faith in the safety of your data by being maintained by entities, which may not be the case, because after a week they may realize that actually it wasn't a threat in the first place. So give some breathing space is I think what our suggestion is on this point.